James Walker hesitated at the entrance of Peterson's tire shop in Bristol. He ran his calloused fingers through his graying hair, preparing himself for what might happen inside. His old delivery van sat outside, its worn tires barely holding on. He had spent 3 sleepless months saving every penny, skipping meals, working extra hours, but still fell short of what he needed. The shop was busy that afternoon. Several customers browsed the showroom, examining shiny new tires arranged neatly on display. The familiar smell of rubber filled the air. James approached the counter where Mr. Peter Johnson stood, talking loudly with another customer about the latest tire technology. "Excuse me, Mr. Johnson?" James's voice was soft, almost apologetic. Peter turned, his eyes immediately sizing up James's faded jacket and scuffed shoes. "What do you want?" "I need tires for my van. They're dangerous now, but I only have $200 saved up. Could we arrange some sort of payment plan? I run a delivery business and—" "Get out of my shop!" Peter's shout cut through, the air like a knife. Every head in the store turned to stare. "People like you waste my time. Can't even afford basic maintenance. How did you even get a driver's license?" The other customers' expressions ranged from pity to amusement. A young man in designer clothes pulled out his phone, filming the scene with a smirk. "Look at this guy," he chuckled to his friend. "Drives a clunker and expects credit. This is going on my social media." James felt heat rising to his face. His hands trembled slightly as he tried to maintain his composure. "Please, Mr. Johnson, just hear me out. I work hard. I just need a chance to—" "Work hard? If you worked hard, you'd have money." Peter's voice grew louder. "I've been running this shop for 20 years. I know your type. Always making excuses, always expecting handouts." Other customers shifted uncomfortably. One elderly gentleman looked away, embarrassed to witness such cruelty. The young man with the phone laughed again, zooming in on James's face to capture every detail of his humiliation. James thought of Emily at home, her worn shoes with holes that let in rain. He remembered promising her he'd fix their van soon. His daughter, only 8 years old, needed new school supplies, proper clothes for winter, decent food on the table. He'd already received 2 warnings about missing rent payments. "I just need time to pay, Mr. Johnson. My delivery business is all I have. My clients need me. My daughter needs—" "Business? That's a joke," Peter interrupted, gesturing at James's appearance. "You don't even look like a businessman. You look like someone who can't plan ahead, can't save money, can't take care of their responsibilities." The shop fell silent except for the quiet whirring of the air conditioning. James stood there, feeling smaller with each passing second. He'd faced rejection before, struggled with money, dealt with closed doors and harsh words, but never had someone stripped away his dignity so publicly. "Now leave before I call the police." Peter pointed at the door. "And don't come back unless you have cash in hand." James walked toward the exit, his legs feeling heavy. Each step echoed in the quiet shop. The other customers watched him go, their eyes following his retreat. The young man filming made one final comment. "Poor guy probably can't even afford gas to leave." Outside, James climbed into his van with trembling hands. He gripped the steering wheel, fighting back tears that threatened to overflow. Starting the engine, he listened to the concerning sounds coming from beneath. Every bump in the road felt dangerous now. His mind raced with worry about what would happen if the tires failed completely. The drive home felt endless. Bristol's streets seemed different somehow, less welcoming. He passed other delivery vans, their drivers looking confident and secure. James wondered how they managed it all, how they could afford proper maintenance, new clothes, decent homes for their families. When he parked outside their flat, James sat for a moment, collecting himself. Emily would be waiting, full of hope and trust. She believed in him completely, never doubting that her father would find a way to provide. "Dad! Dad!" Emily's voice called from upstairs as he entered. She ran down to meet him, her face bright with expectation. "Did you get the tires? Can we drive to the park tomorrow?" Looking at her hopeful eyes, James felt his heart break a little more. Her thin dress had patches where he'd tried to repair it. Her shoes showed their age, scuffed and worn at the edges. Everything about their home spoke of careful saving, making Do with less, stretching each pound as far as possible. James knelt down to her level. He wanted to tell her everything would be okay, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he pulled her close, inhaling the scent of her strawberry shampoo, a small luxury he still managed to provide. The man at the tire shop. He was very busy today, James said finally. But don't worry, sweetheart. We'll find another. Way, we always do, right? Emily nodded, her small arms wrapping around his neck. You're the bravest person I know, Daddy. Teacher says brave people find ways to make things better. That night, after Emily fell asleep, James sat by the window. He counted his remaining money again, hoping somehow the amount had magically increased. It hadn't. His delivery business was barely keeping them afloat. Each day brought new challenges, new worried clients, new debts to juggle. Yet as he looked at Emily's peaceful sleeping face, something stirred within him. The humiliation at the tire shop burned like fuel rather than shame. Perhaps his situation seemed hopeless. But James refused to let it end him. Somewhere deep inside, beneath all the worry and fear, hope whispered that this wasn't the end of his story. The end. The morning sunlight filtered through the windshield as James started his delivery route. But today, the familiar rumble of his van carried an ominous tone. Each turn of the wheel made the old tires groan in protest. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, whispering silent prayers that they would hold out just one more day. At his first stop, Mrs. Thompson was waiting by her door. "Morning, James. Right on time as always." She handed him a box of homemade biscuits wrapped in a tea towel. "Saw you looked tired yesterday. Thought you might need a pick-me-up." James accepted gratefully, touched by her kindness. Yesterday's humiliation still stung, but moments like these reminded him of good people in the world. He made his rounds through the residential streets, delivering packages and collecting signatures. By mid-morning, his worry had grown. The van pulled to the left now, and strange noises came from the front wheels. James checked his watch. 3 more deliveries before lunch. He could make it. He had to make it. Around noon, he drove through the old warehouse district, an area most drivers avoided. The buildings stood empty, their broken windows like hollow eyes watching the road. Usually, James kept his eyes straight ahead, focusing on getting through quickly. But today, something was different. A smell hit him first, acrid, sharp, unmistakable. "Smoke," he muttered, then louder, "Fire!" Following his instincts, he steered toward the source. Through his windshield, he spotted thick black smoke pouring from an abandoned building. Flames licked at the edges of broken windows, climbing higher with each passing moment. James started to drive past, telling himself it wasn't his problem. He had deliveries to finish, a daughter to support. But then he heard it, a human voice, faint but distinct, calling for help. Without thinking, James yanked the steering wheel, parking his van at an angle. He jumped out, running toward the burning building. The heat hit him like a wall, but he pushed through, covering his mouth and nose with his shirt. Inside the warehouse, smoke filled the air like a thick fog. James could barely see 2 feet ahead. The voice called out again, stronger now, coming from somewhere to his left. "Hello, where are you?" James shouted, coughing as smoke filled his lungs. "Over here, I'm trapped." James followed the voice, stumbling over debris. The old warehouse floor was littered with broken furniture and collapsed shelving. As his eyes adjusted, he spotted movement through the haze. An elderly man lay on the floor, his leg pinned beneath a massive wooden beam. His fine grey suit was torn and covered in soot. Fear shone in his pale blue eyes as he struggled to free himself. "Don't move," James called out. "I'll get you out." The beam was enormous, easily 8 feet long and thick as a tree trunk. James pulled at it, but it wouldn't budge. The fire crackled behind them, growing louder. Heat pressed against their backs. "My van," James suddenly remembered. "I have a jack." He ran back outside, grabbed the jack from his delivery van and returned with it and a sturdy plank he found among the debris. Working quickly, he positioned the jack under the beam and placed the plank as leverage. "On 3, crawl out," James instructed. 1, 2, 3. He cranked the jack handle with all his strength. The beam lifted slowly, just enough to create a gap. The elderly man pulled himself free, wincing in pain as his leg emerged from under the debris. "We need to move." James helped him stand, supporting most of his weight. Together they stumbled toward the exit as beams creaked overhead. Just as they reached the doorway, a section of the roof collapsed where the man had been trapped. Outside, they collapsed on the pavement, coughing and gasping for fresh air. The wail of sirens grew closer, echoing through the empty streets. "Thank you," the man said between coughs. "Thank you so much." "Are you all right, sir? Your leg looks bad." The man straightened himself despite obvious pain. "I'll be fine, just twisted, I think." He extended a soot-covered hand. "Charles Bennett." James shook it firmly. "James Walker." James Walker. Charles repeated the name slowly, studying James's face. "You saved my life. How can I ever repay you?" "No need, sir. Anyone would have done the same. Would they?" Charles's gaze was intense. "In my experience, most people would have driven away. You risked everything for a stranger." Fire trucks pulled up, their sirens stopping abruptly. Firefighters jumped out, unrolling hoses as they assessed the building. A paramedic approached Charles, asking questions about his injuries. "I need to finish my deliveries," James said, checking his watch. His customers would worry if he didn't arrive on time. "Wait." Charles gripped his arm. "Sit with me a moment. Tell me about yourself, James Walker. I want to know more about the man who saved my life." James hesitated, looking at his van, but something in the elderly man's voice made him stay. They sat together on the curb as paramedics checked Charles's leg. The warehouse continued burning behind them, flames reaching toward the grey sky. "I run a small delivery service," James began. "Just me and my van. It's not much, but it supports my daughter Emily and me." "Tell me more," Charles encouraged. The words came flooding out. James shared everything: the tire shop incident, his financial struggles, his fears about failing Emily. Charles listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making encouraging sounds. "And that's why you nearly didn't stop," Charles said when James finished. "You have so much responsibility on your shoulders." "I couldn't just leave you there," James said simply. "No," Charles smiled for the first time. "You couldn't. That says everything about your character." He pulled out a slightly singed business card from his pocket. "Call me tomorrow, James. I used to own 5 businesses here in Bristol. Sold them all when my wife passed 2 years ago. Been feeling rather lost since then." "I'm sorry for your loss," James said sincerely. "Thank you. But perhaps—" Charles looked at the burning building, then back at James. "Perhaps God sent me to that warehouse for a reason. Perhaps I'm supposed to help you as you helped me." The paramedics finished their examination and helped Charles toward the ambulance. He turned back to James one more time. "Call me tomorrow. Don't let pride stop you. That warehouse was mine, you know. I was checking if it was worth renovating. Now I think maybe it was worth more than any renovation could provide." As the ambulance pulled away, James sat alone by his van. He held the business card, its edges blackened, but the print still readable. For the first time since yesterday's humiliation, hope bloomed in his chest. Not because of promises or charity, but because someone had seen his worth. Starting his van, James continued his route with renewed energy. His tires still worried him, but tomorrow held possibilities he couldn't yet imagine. And 3 days after the fire, James's phone rang while he was sorting deliveries in his flat. The number was unfamiliar, and for a moment he hesitated to answer. Since the humiliation at the tire shop, he'd avoided unknown callers, fearing more bad news. "Hello? This is James Walker." "James? It's Charles Bennett. I hope you don't mind." "Am I calling? I got your number from the fire department report." James straightened immediately. "Mr. Bennett, how's your leg? Are you recovering well?" "Much better, thank you. The doctors say I'm remarkably fit for my age." Charles chuckled warmly. "James, would you join me for lunch tomorrow? There's a nice place on Park Street. The Crown and Anchor, 1 o'clock. The Crown and Anchor." James swallowed hard. He'd passed that restaurant many times during deliveries, but never dared enter. The prices on the menu board were more than he spent on groceries for a week. "Yes, I'd like to discuss something with you. It's important. Yes, sir, I'll be there." The next day, James arrived early, wearing his only good shirt and freshly polished shoes. The restaurant was elegant, with crisp white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. He felt out of place as the hostess led him to where Charles sat by the window. "James, right on time." Charles smiled warmly, gesturing to the menu. "Order anything you like. The lamb here is excellent." James opened the menu, his eyes widening at the prices. "The soup sounds good," he said quickly. "Nonsense. When was the last time you had a proper meal?" The waitress arrived, and Charles ordered, generously, lamb for himself, steak for James, along with sides and dessert. As they waited for their food, Charles studied James thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about our conversation at the fire," Charles said. "About your struggles, about that tire shop incident." James shifted uncomfortably. He'd hoped never to think about that day again. "That warehouse I was checking," Charles continued, "I still own it. Been sitting on that property for years, trying to decide what to do with it." The steaks arrived, perfectly cooked and garnished. James had never eaten anything so fine. He tried to eat slowly, savoring each bite. "I've been considering opening another business there," Charles said casually. "Perhaps a tire shop, but not just any tire shop." James nearly choked on his food. "A tire shop? Yes, one with proper customer service, fair prices, and programs to help people who struggle financially." Charles cut his lamb deliberately. "Someone to run it who understands what it's like to be turned away, to be treated with disrespect." The implication hung in the air. James set down his fork, his hands trembling slightly. I don't know anything about running a tire shop, Mr. Bennett. You don't need to, not yet." Charles leaned forward, his eyes bright with energy. "I'd like you to be my partner. Not an employee, but a full partner. I'll handle the capital investment, the business setup, the legal matters. You'll learn the operation and bring your understanding of working-class customers." The word partner echoed in James's mind. Him? A partner? It felt like a dream that would shatter any moment. "This isn't charity, James," Charles continued, seemingly reading his thoughts. "You saved my life. You have something money can't buy, integrity and compassion. Those qualities are worth more than any university degree." James thought of his van, of the constant worry about tires, about rent, about Emily's future. He thought of the humiliation at Peterson's shop, the laughter of strangers. "I won't let you down," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "I know you won't," Charles smiled. "Shall we start tomorrow?" The learning began immediately. Charles arranged for James to visit existing tire shops, observing best practices. He studied different tire brands, understanding what made quality products. He learned about inventory management, ordering systems, and safety regulations. Charles introduced him to suppliers. "This is my business partner, James Walker," he'd say proudly. James learned to negotiate prices, to build relationships, to stand firm but fair. Meanwhile, Emily often accompanied them to the warehouse after school. While James studied business manuals and tire catalogs, she did her homework at a makeshift desk Charles had set up. The old warehouse slowly transformed as contractors worked on renovation. "Dad, you're getting so smart," Emily observed one afternoon, watching him review pricing charts. "We're both learning new things," James replied, helping her with her math homework. "Education is important, sweetheart. That's why I'm working hard now, so you can focus on your studies without worry." Evenings became James's study time. After Emily slept, he pored over books about customer service, business finance, and tire technology. Charles recommended reading materials, quizzed him on key concepts, and shared wisdom from his decades in business. A successful business isn't just about profit, Charles taught. It's about serving your community, treating people with respect, and creating value that lasts. One night, while reviewing inventory lists, James made a promise to himself. He would not just learn this business, he would master it. He would create a tire shop where no one would ever be humiliated, where struggling customers found help instead of mockery. "Mr. Bennett?" James asked during one of their planning sessions. "Why are you really doing this? There are many worthy causes for your money." Charles was quiet for a moment. "After my wife died, I lost my purpose. Business was our shared passion. Then I met you, someone willing to risk everything for a stranger. I realized my money could have real meaning again, could help someone with your character succeed." "Thank you," James said simply. The words felt inadequate for the life-changing opportunity Charles was providing. "Thank you, James. You're giving me purpose again." As weeks passed, the warehouse took shape. Fresh paint covered old walls, modern equipment arrived. James learned to operate tire-changing machines, alignment tools, and diagnostic computers. He practiced explaining technical concepts in simple terms that any customer could understand. Charles helped him develop unique policies, payment plans for struggling customers, free tire checks, and emergency road service for single parents and elderly drivers. They planned to keep prices fair but not cheap. Quality service deserved fair compensation. Emily's excitement grew as the opening day approached. "Dad's going to own a tire shop," she told her classmates. Her pride gave James strength during long study nights and early training mornings. The building gradually transformed from a burnt shell into a modern, welcoming business. Large windows let in natural light. A comfortable waiting area had magazines and coffee. James insisted on a small play area for children, remembering his own anxieties about bringing Emily to appointments. Late one night, standing in the nearly finished shop, James thought about the man who had mocked him weeks ago, not with bitterness but with determination. He would show Bristol that business could be done differently, with dignity and compassion. The end. The morning of the grand opening dawned bright and clear. James stood outside Walker and Bennett Tires at 6 o'clock, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. He'd arrived early, wanting everything perfect for their first day. Charles joined him minutes later, walking with a slight limp that remained from the warehouse incident. Nervous? Terrified, James admitted honestly. What if no one comes? They'll come, Charles assured him. Word has spread about our approach. People are curious. As they waited, James noticed movement across the street. Peter Johnson was already at his shop, peering through his window blinds. James looked away, focusing on their own preparations. By 9 o'clock, a small crowd had gathered. Balloons decorated the entrance. Emily, dressed in her best clothes, stood proudly by the door, handing out welcome flyers she'd helped design. "Welcome to Walker and Bennett Tires," she called cheerfully to passers-by. "We're open today." The first customer was Mrs. Thompson, James's morning delivery client. "I wouldn't miss this for the world," she said warmly. "You've worked so hard." "James?" Soon more people arrived. Some came out of curiosity, having heard about the man who'd saved Charles Bennett from the fire. Others came because they'd experienced Peter Johnson's harsh treatment themselves. James personally greeted each customer, showing them the waiting area with its comfortable chairs, magazines, and the small corner he'd set up specifically for children. Toy blocks and coloring books lay scattered on a soft rug. "My kids always get restless waiting," one mother remarked appreciatively. "This is thoughtful." "My own daughter taught me that," James replied, smiling at Emily. By mid-morning, the service bays were busy. James and 2 mechanics he'd hired worked efficiently, explaining each service clearly to customers. When someone couldn't afford immediate payment, James quietly offered a payment plan. "I can only put down £50 now," whispered a young man named David. "My baby just arrived and expenses are tight." "That's fine," James said. "We'll arrange monthly payments. No interest. Your family's safety is important." Across the street, Peter Johnson's shop remained oddly quiet. Customers who usually visited him were crossing the road instead. By noon, Peter had positioned himself by his shop's doorway, watching the steady stream of people entering Walker and Bennett Tires. Around 1 o'clock, Robert Mitchell arrived, the same man who'd filmed James's humiliation months ago. He hesitated, at the door looking ashamed. "Can I help you?" James asked professionally. Robert shuffled his feet. I need new tires, but first I owe you an apology." "For what?" "That day at Peterson's. I filmed you, I laughed, it was wrong." Robert looked genuinely remorseful. "I posted it online, but I deleted it after learning what happened." James nodded slowly. "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what we do after." Relief showed on Robert's face. "Can you check my tires? I'll pay whatever's fair." "Of course, let's look at them together." As James inspected Robert's car, explaining wear patterns and safety concerns, he noticed Peter Johnson finally crossing the street. His steps were hesitant, deliberate. "James," Peter called out. Several customers turned to watch. James straightened, wiping his hands on a shop towel. "Hello, Peter. I need to talk to you." Peter's voice was lower than usual, lacking its typical authority. "Of course. Would you like some tea? We can talk inside." In the office, away from listening ears, Peter slumped into a chair. "Half my regular customers have left. They're all coming here." "Business is competitive," James said neutrally, pouring tea for both of them. "No." Peter shook his head. "It's not about competition. It's about how you treat people. I've been watching all morning. What have you seen? You remember their names. You explain things patiently. You offer payment plans." Peter sighed heavily. "That man you just helped, David, he used to be my customer. I yelled at him last month for being short on cash." James sipped his tea quietly, letting Peter continue. "How are you doing this?" Peter asked. "You had nothing 6 months ago. I humiliated you. Now look at this place. Look at how people respond. To you." "I remember what it feels like to be them," James said honestly. "To worry about money, to feel judged, to need respect more than anything else." Peter was silent, processing this truth. "We could work together," James suggested carefully. "Different approaches for different customers. Some people will always prefer your no-nonsense style. You'd consider that after what I did? Everyone deserves a second chance. Look where mine led me." The afternoon brought more revelations. Customers shared stories of Peter's rudeness, but also mentioned times when he'd fixed things quickly and cheaply for desperate people. The man wasn't entirely without heart. By closing time, Walker and Bennett Tires had served 32 customers. More importantly, they'd created a new standard for customer care in their neighborhood. As they cleaned up that evening, Charles placed a hand on James's shoulder. "You did something today that's harder than running a business. You started changing a community's culture." Emily, tired but happy, leaned against her father. "Everyone was so nice today, Dad." "That's because we were nice first, sweetie." Across the street, Peter Johnson was locking up too. He looked over, hesitated, then raised, his hand in a small wave. James waved back. The next morning, Peter appeared at their door early. "I've been thinking," he said. "I have 2 bay windows built for specialty tires. You don't have space for those services. Maybe we could refer certain jobs to each other." James smiled. "That sounds reasonable. Would you like to discuss it over breakfast?" As weeks passed, an unexpected partnership developed. Walker and Bennett Tires handled general service with patience and payment plans. Peter's shop focused on performance tires and quick fixes for mechanics. They even began recommending each other to customers based on specific needs. The young man who'd filmed the original incident visited again, bringing his friends. "I told everyone about this place," he said, "about how you forgave that other shop owner. That's real class." 6 months after his humiliation, James had not only built a successful business, but had transformed the neighborhood's spirit. He proved that kindness in business wasn't weakness. It was strength that multiplied itself. Some evenings, James and Peter shared tea, discussing industry changes and customer needs. Neither spoke of that awful day, but both had learned from it. The street that once divided them now connected 2 shops with different methods, but shared respect. The end. The first rays of sunlight crept through the windows of Walker and Bennett Tires as James opened the shop for its 1-year anniversary. He stood at the counter, reviewing the day's appointments, listening to the familiar morning sounds. Coffee brewing, tools being arranged, the gentle hum of the tire display spinning. Slowly in the corner, Emily sat at the counter, carefully updating appointment cards with her neat handwriting. Though only 9, she'd become the unofficial shop mascot, charming customers with her bright smile and quick mind. "Dad, Mrs. Peterson is bringing her car in at 10, she announced, checking the schedule. "Should I prepare the complimentary tea? Trey?" "Yes, sweetheart. Remember to add the biscuits she likes." James marveled at how far they'd come. The empty building next door had been purchased last month, allowing them to expand into basic car repairs. 3 mechanics now worked beside James, all chosen carefully. People who understood struggle and appreciated second chances. Mark, a former auto worker laid off during company downsizing, handled most repairs. Sophia, recently widowed with 2 children, specialized in diagnostic work. Tom, who'd once lived in his car after losing his job, managed the parts inventory with precision that impressed everyone. Around 9:30, Peter Johnson arrived carrying a box of specialty racing tires. His shop now served as their overflow supplier for orders they couldn't stock directly. "Morning, James," Peter said, his voice carrying warmth that would have seemed impossible a year ago. "Got those Michelin Pilot Sports you requested?" "Perfect. Timing. Robert's coming for them at 11. Peter lingered by the counter watching Emily work. Hard to believe a year has passed. "Time flies when you're busy serving customers properly," James replied, helping unload the tires. "I owe you more than I've said," Peter admitted quietly. "Watching you work, how you treat people, I've learned more this year than in 20 years of business." "We've both learned," James said simply. Charles Bennett arrived just before 10, walking with his cane, but moving better than expected for his age. He'd made these morning visits a habit, claiming to check on his investment but really enjoying the shop's energy. "Anniversary day," he announced cheerfully. "I brought pastries from that French bakery on George Street." Emily's eyes lit up. "The one with chocolate croissants?" "Especially those," Charles winked. The morning rush began. Customers filed in, some familiar faces, others new referrals. Mrs. Thompson came for her regular tire rotation, bringing homemade preserves for the team. Robert arrived with his friends, all loyal customers now. The young man who'd filmed James's humiliation months ago waited patiently, reading magazines in the play area. "Sorry, sir, but I need to tell you something." He approached James nervously. During a pause, "I never thought I'd be back. But the way you handled everything, the way you forgave Mr. Johnson and started fresh, it changed how I see things." "People can always change," James assured him. "That's why we're here." At lunch, when the shop quieted briefly, Charles asked to speak privately. James found him in the office, looking contemplative. "James, there's something I've been meaning to discuss. I'm moving to the countryside next month, the quiet life, you know. My sister has a cottage in the Cotswolds." James felt a pang of concern. "You'll still visit, I hope." "Of course, but more importantly," Charles pulled out legal documents. "I'm signing my remaining share of the business to you. Full ownership, James." The words hit James like a thunderbolt. "Charles, I can't. You've already done so much. You earned it. Watch this place. Watch how you run it. You've proven you understand what truly matters in business." Charles's eyes gleamed with emotion. "When I met you, you had nothing but character. Now look what you've built." James struggled to find words. The office walls held photos of their journey. The burned warehouse, construction progress, opening. "Day-satisfied customers I never imagined." James's voice cracked. "That's exactly my point," Charles said gently. "We never know how life will unfold. Your kindness to a stranger in a burning building led to all this. That's why we must treat everyone with dignity." Later that afternoon, as golden sunlight painted the shop in warm hues, James watched Emily demonstrating tire pressure checks to a customer's curious daughter. Peter worked alongside Sophia, teaching her specialty tire techniques. The mechanics laughed together over inside jokes. The elderly couple James had helped that morning returned with their granddaughter. "We wanted to bring flowers," the grandmother explained, "for your anniversary and to thank you properly." "Thank me for what?" "For making us feel valued. At our age, many shops treat us like burdens." Her husband nodded in agreement. As the day wound down, James stood outside, watching the sunset paint Bristol's skyline. He thought about that day of humiliation, the burning warehouse, the leap of faith Charles offered. Each challenge had led to growth, each setback to opportunity. Emily joined him, slipping her small hand into his. "Dad, why do you look so happy?" "Because I understand something now," he said, looking at his daughter, then at the shop bearing his name. "We have the power to change people's lives with simple kindness. Every customer who walks through our door could be carrying a story we don't know." That evening, after everyone left, James made one addition to their sign. Below Walker & Bennett Tires, he added in small, elegant letters, "Where every customer matters." The words caught the last rays of sunlight, casting a warm glow that promised welcome to all who would read them, the wealthy and the struggling, the kind and the learning, anyone who walked through their doors seeking not just tires, but respect and understanding. The end.